Like, I'm putting them, and they're like, you can't run. Like, you're disqualified. You can't run. And I was like, I get it. But I'm not going to walk around in my cycling shoes. But and so like, no, like, you are disqualified. Like, you need to surrender your bib. Like, you're done.
First flow in there. It's always the start.
The first one's always the toughest.
It's always that. Once it gets going, right?
Full breath. Fill the belly. Fill the chest. Big exhale. One more. Last one. Filling the belly, filling the chest, and letting it go. Good.
Well, I'd say that's the easiest way to start this podcast. Good. 3 breaths. Welcome, Dylan. Welcome to the Primal Path Podcast again. For those who don't know you, give you a little 30-second speech, who you are, what you do. We can kick this thing off.
All right. Hi, I'm Dylan Howley. They call me Lefty. I'm the founder of the Lefty Cycles Project. We're a non-profit that collects, fixes up, and donates bikes to those in recovery, families, and kids in need. I'm also an Ironman finisher. I'm an Ironman attempter, as I've attempted and failed a couple of times. But I'm also a finisher. I am a lover of endurance sports. I love pushing my mind and body to the limits. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a full-time employee. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm a lover of all things holistic. I could go on, but I wear a lot of hats, and they all wrap around my passions and the things that have helped me become who I am and continue on my journey to become better. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Man, that was probably the best intro we've had, dude. That's good. It's cool, too, because when you start explaining those things out, you realize all those different things that you are. A lot of times we put ourselves in a box, like, especially when I was in the military. That's why I recognize and identify myself as I am, I'm in the military. That's all I know. And what we realize is sometimes I can get stuck in our head and puts us in a little bit of a box.
Yeah.
And then when we actually look back at the things that we've done in life, you're like, man, my transcript's pretty long. I got a lot of stuff underneath that belt. And you realize it's in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah.
But, let's start off with what I would say probably was the start of everything. How did your personal journey as a recovering alcoholic lead to Lefty Cycles Project, which led into making donations and helping other people who are recovering, that led down the path of endurance in your life?
Yeah, so this is a good question, because this is a huge part. So my recovery from alcohol has been a priority for the last 17 years. I just hit 17 years sober this May.
Hell yeah, man.
One day at a time for all those out there fighting their own addictions, one day at a time. But for me, the Lefty Cycles Project was something I started in a way very selfishly. I was working at a scrapyard. I'd come across bikes. I'd bring them home and work on them, take them apart. I can't even call it working on in the beginning. I was just taking parts off and bringing them back just to keep myself busy. And I always loved bikes, loved working on bikes, and it was just something that kept me busy. Over the years, it turned into a thing where I started building them not only for myself to ride, but I just had a collection of bikes and gave one away and gave another one away. And with the help of some really good friends, we formed the Lefty Cycles Project, made it an official 501c3, and have this mission of getting bikes into the hands of those that need them for the reason of anything in their recovery. So whether it's transportation, fun, hobby, you just want to ride around, like, we don't say no. So one, we don't say no for donations coming in, and we don't say no for donations going out. We'll always try to get someone a bike for whatever the reason is. But for me, so much of it helped keep me sober that it really was that selfish move of working on myself and then having the overflow of these extra bikes getting to other people.
You think it's selfish? It's funny how we look at it, because you can look at it as a selfish, and I think you could take that personal, but realistically, that's what your body needed to do to help kickstart where you are today, like you said.
Yeah.
So it's selfish. It might sound selfish, but
and
for
it's
the
important
others
to do those selfish things.
You need to.
We need to, because it was the best thing for my recovery. And even today, and I can get into it later, the Lefty Cycles project is still huge within my recovery. But from that, I started riding, and I started riding more and more and more, where I started out at 1 mile to 2 miles to 4 miles. And this craving of wanting to be better and wanting to continuously improve, I felt was like an after effect from my recovery, from all the AA meetings and all the outpatient groups, and just after years and years of working on myself and my sobriety, it started to turn into like this physical quest of wanting to be physically better and capable of more. And so I started on this road of endurance biking. I started riding, and it started, like I said, with a couple miles and turned into a 5-mile ride on the airline trail on a mountain bike that didn't fit. And it slowly turned into longer and longer and longer rides. And we hit 50 miles and 60 miles and mixed in gravel grinders, and was doing the same, but now on dirt and up north in Vermont and New Hampshire. And there were rides I'd set out to do for a 50-mile gravel grinder and hit like 40 and be done. And like walk all the way back or get a ride back. And there was a lot of trial and errors and aim big and fall short. But this idea was, if I didn't quit and I gave it my all, I'd end up just so much farther than like my physical skills would possibly take me. And so riding and the Lefty Cycles project became such a big part of my life that I set out on my bike almost every day. If I wasn't riding indoor, I was riding outdoors, and it was not only a tool for my recovery and staying sober, but it was also a really interesting journey internally to see what I was capable of, right? Like, what am I capable of doing for distance physically, as long as I just don't quit? Like, I was never the fastest or the strongest or the best, but what if my mental ability could transcribe into something bigger, right? Like, what if I could do something bigger than myself just because I refused to quit? And so we enter the world of slow endurance sports.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. You know, we're touching back on that selfish. There's a difference between being selfish and having self-respect, right? And I think there's a very fine line in that a lot of people think that it's being selfish rather than being like the ability to say no and take that time to yourself. You know, a general example would be like your friends ask you out to go out to eat dinner, but you have, you know, plans to go train. You feel bad saying no to them, so you say yes. Now you've taken away from what you're trying to create, you know. But if we say no, it feels like we're being selfish and look, I'm doing something for me. But when that thing is to make you a better person, I don't look at it as selfish. I look at it as you have self-respect, the ability to say no, the ability to put your effort and your energy into the thing that is going to make you a better person on top of that.
Yeah.
And that long and slow endurance, I'm with you. I'm right there with you. I've never been fast, but you know what? I can go.
Yeah.
That's it. I could just not stop. I know that I can go and I can not quit. And there's something about that when you always think that there's a limit to that. And somehow we continuously break that limit. So how'd you go from, I'm going to try and ride really, really far, to Ironman sounds like a good idea. Why don't we just not kick it up a little notch? Let's go crank it to 11.
We went from 0 to 100. And so it really started with one of my good friends, family friends. His daughter was fighting cancer down at Smile in New Haven. And the close to the free ride is a 100-mile ride. And so I dedicated a 100-mile ride to her. I had 53 weeks to train and said, if I can do 100 miles in a year, like if you could beat cancer, I can ride 100 miles in a year. Like, I can do this. Yeah. And the joke was I was only riding like 7 miles in 60 minutes at the time. And I was also on a mountain bike that was 2 sizes too small. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. But I watched her beat cancer with a smile, came up with this like saying, no more bad days, that we weren't going to let a bad moment ruin a good day based off of like watching her strength. And so that year, I just kept pushing. And I did my 100 milers. I did it in just under 7 hours. I was like beyond ecstatic. Like it was everything I had dreamed of and more. And I celebrated for maybe a week and then came crashing down. The post-race depression started kicking my ass, and we're in mid-October, the seasonal depression starts kicking my ass. So in a way to combat the seasonal depression, I signed up for a half-distance Ironman, which I thought was going to be the next biggest challenge. I was listening to a lot of David Goggins. He talks about getting out of your comfort zone and how much of a challenge swimming was for him. For those that don't know, my right arm is paralyzed, so this adds to the story as I got one good arm. That's why they call me Lefty, and why swimming can absolutely fucking suck with one arm. But I figured, what else could be harder than riding 100 miles than swimming? And so my first ever triathlon I signed up for 9 months before it was a half Ironman.
Your first triathlon? You didn't go like you didn't go sprint, you didn't go Olympic, you went straight half Ironman. Man, you got some cojones.
And so the $385 financial commitment is what really held me strong those first few weeks. I was like, I can't believe I paid $400 for a race, and I don't know how to swim. And the first couple of times in the pool, like the first time, I really remember crying, and I couldn't swim down, and it was like, what did I do? What did I do? Like, how did I like convince myself that this was a good idea? And it was the best thing ever. And so that year, I trained my ass off. I did a lot of YouTube studying and books, and I did it. I did my first half Ironman that June, half Ironman distance, and it was over. So what else can I do? Can I do a full Ironman next year?
Do you think that if you didn't sign up, if you decided like, hey, let me train and then sign up, and you went into that pool before you were signed up for the Ironman, do you think you still would have completed that half Ironman? Or do you think like jumping in that pool and you weren't signed up that you go, you know what, maybe I'll do a bike and a run event? Or do you think that signing up front, having the ignorance, I don't want to necessarily call it ignorance, but just the unaware, or the, you know, not being aware of like the difficulties that you're going to face, but having kind of that motivation, that dopamine to go, yeah, I'm going to sign up for this thing. It's going to be great. And then since you're signed up, you're already in the suck. Yeah. And then you go, well, I'm signed up. I got to learn it. I'm committed.
100%. Every great thing that I did, I was signed up. And when I signed up, I wasn't physically capable of doing it. So my first 20-mile race, I was only able to ride 10. When I signed up for like the 5-borough New York ride at 40 miles, I had only clocked 30. So every time I was signing up for stuff, it was way beyond my capabilities. And in my mind, I only had to do it once. And it was the best thing ever. I remember signing up. I went outside the office that I was working at and threw up. It's like, I can't believe I did this. Like, I felt so sick, so nervous. Like, what did I just do? Like, I just committed to a half Ironman. I don't have a bike. Like, I don't like running. I can't swim. What is going on? In the meantime, when I say running out the office, I'm working at a scrapyard. So I'm working in a scrapyard industry 60 hours a week. Work boots, Carhartts, grease.
Hard labor.
Yeah. Heavy material.
Not air conditioned. Not really heated.
Outside.
You're outside in all the conditions.
And yeah, you know, that job definitely helped me in the long haul condition for it. But such an extreme. No one else in the industry was like understanding or knew what I was doing. Like, I was just the oddball out, and myself had no idea what I was doing. But signing up gave me that. It was like dangling that carrot of motivation. Like, you're signed up, money's always been tight, so you've just committed money that you don't necessarily have to commit for a race that you can't do. Like, you better freaking do it. And I signed up like a month later for a full Ironman. I was like, okay, I did the half, maybe I can do the whole. Remember my wife questioning it, like, I know what I saw you have to sacrifice this year to train to be able to do a half. How do you think you could do a whole? Like, to me, that's double. How the hell can you do double? And I was like, I don't know, but I wonder if I can, right? Like, I wonder if I can. And so that year, started pushing hard in the winter, and 2020, COVID hit. So 4 months out, they canceled the race, and I didn't know what to do. I spent a whole month not really training. Like, it's really hard to go do a long run when there's no reason to do it.
Yeah, right.
And we got really close to our window to cancel the Airbnb. So I said, fuck it, we'll go to New York. We'll do it anyway. And so 2020, I set out to do my own Ironman unsupported. And I went with my cousins, my wife, and my daughter, and I did it. I took all day, slow and steady. I finished it in 17 and a half hours, which is a half hour longer than their official time frame.
17 hours is an Ironman cutoff?
Yeah. And so I didn't count it as official. And so I did the course. It was an unbelievable day.
Up in Lake Placid,
Up
right?
in Lake Placid. No
Beautiful.
fans, nothing but, oh my God. And it was that day shaped me. And it proved to me that hard things can be done by myself.
Do you swim Mirror Lake? Or do you like swim Lake Saranac?
So that year I did Lake Saranac.
Okay.
Based off of my Airbnb and everything,
Yeah.
it just made sense. Interesting enough, we got down there at 5 a.m. and I didn't take into consideration how dark it was. Sunrise has just happened, but you put the goggles on and you look. I couldn't see anything. So it takes me about 2 hours to swim this 2.4 mile distance, but the first hour is in complete darkness, and the only thing I can see is one yellowish light off of somebody's dock on the other end, and it's complete darkness. And that's my only thing is I know I have to swim towards that light for an hour. That's all I got.
So is that how you marked for your distance for your run? I mean, obviously you've seen Lake Placid, you've seen the Ironmans, you've seen videos on it of seeing what they do for the swim, but obviously you had to do your own measurements and stuff like that. But is it kind of like going out there and being like, all right, rangefinder to that yellow light where that dock is 400 meters, so it's a quarter mile, and I just need to do that like 8-10 times. Like, how did you measure your distance when trying to do that swim?
It was like that.
Was it on a watch or
that
what?
That dock was about a mile, so I knew if I got to the dock and back, I would be at my 2. And there was like basically the way the lake was shaped. I knew if I kicked it out and then came back, it should have put me right there. Watching the watch, I had a pretty good indication of where I was. I think I ended up swimming an extra 100 yards, extra 4 laps in a pool, essentially, basically getting back and out of the water just to make sure.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
You never want to be shy.
No.
No. Now, how miserable it is, you'll still take that extra 0.2 of a mile just to guarantee that you don't have to do that again and you check that box, right?
And the cool thing was coming out of the water, here's my family, my cousins, my wife, and so it wasn't a rush through transition. Don't get my bike and slowly make my way. So it was cool to have that interaction. Did the bike really without any major incident, and then did the run that year. Again, without any major incident. It was just one of those really long, quiet days. Nothing to do but think. And for me, it was so emotional. I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm doing this. And did it and was like, hell yeah. We're going next year and we're going to get a medal. We're going to bring a medal home. 2021 went up and it was just didn't work out that well. Swim was great. Bike was great, but hit mile 77 and my bike broke. The derailleur failed, leaving me gear 1 and gear 2. And I'm in Lake Placid, tons of elevation.
Yeah.
So going up the hills, it's fine, but anything else. So I ended up, was no good. So I ended up missing the cutoff that year.
And the rule is with on an Ironman, if your bike breaks, you are the only person who can fix it, right? Or what?
No, they have techs. I did have a tech come fix it. I got another 10 miles where it worked, and then it kind of shit the bed, broke again. So there were mechanics, but I was fighting the clock. You have 8.5 hours for your cutoff.
Yeah, the cutoff at that time.
I missed the cutoff by about 10 to 15 minutes.
That's killer.
And so I'm in transition, putting on my running shoes. I'm just coming off the bike. I'm putting them, and they're like, you can't run. You're disqualified. You can't run. And I was like, I get it. But I'm not going to walk around in my cycling shoes. But so no, you are disqualified. You need to surrender your bib. You're done. And in my mind, do I run? Do I run? But also, no. I regret not running that day on my own. But I know where my mind was, and I had just ridden 112, 30 of it in fucking second gear, and I was done. And I said, no. I went down to the finish line and cheered everyone on for a few hours.
Your coach was your coach. I think
My
I remember
coach
your
was
coach was
racing.
racing. So
Yeah.
you were at the end, got to cheer her on, I believe.
And she came across, and I'm like, unwinded. I was like, no, I've been here.
Yeah, she's all excited,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure.
Yeah, like
holy heck.
She had one of her great races, and like she was so surprised to see me there, and that was the joke. Was like, no, I beat you.
yeah.
And what a learning curve, right? Like you can do everything right and still not succeed. But what a strengthening moment, right? Like to be able to. I didn't finish. The day's not over. It could either be the worst day ever or the best day ever. And it was still, I'm in Lake Placid. People are finishing their freaking Ironman. It's not the worst day ever. Like, we're going to the finish line. And I was able, like, were there tears? Yes. Was there emotions? Yes. Anger? Yes. All of it came and went, but I was still able to, like, sum it up and have a good day. And, like, that was amazing. And I took that as motivation and determination to go up the next year and do everything I set out to do. And so 2022, we started and we finished. 16 hours and 40 minutes from start to finish.
20-minute, your buzzer beater, relatively in the grand scheme, the last 30 minutes. That's exactly. A buzzer beater in the endurance realm.
Your money's worth.
Yeah, exactly. You got to use all the aid stations, all the people's time.
But I got it, and I did it, and like there's after everything said and done, no one can take that away from me. And I still go back and I watch the videos, and it lights me up with me like crossing the finish line and knowing like that day I gave everything I had. There were so many moments of like ready to quit and just leaving nothing on the table in a sense. And like, I don't know, I use that day now in my hard times as motivation. Like, no, like you've gotten through some shitty times. Like you can do whatever it is that's challenging you currently. And so, holy shit, man, Ironman and the endurance racing has been such an incredible part of my life because of what I've been able to learn about myself when I'm able to get through those gray zones or those hard times.
I think there's a certain thing that happens in endurance when you hit so many hours or so many levels that you kind of get that I can do this. The question, I'm not sure I can do this, and then you'll get that thought that says I should probably stop, or okay, let me just accept the fact that I'm not trained. But there's another gear, right? There's another gear in there that is if you just continue to step forward or whatever it is that you're on and allow your brain to continue to think about it, you'll hit like, well, it is possible. And then you have this spark. Yeah. But that spark might be 10 miles. It might be a half a mile. It might be 4 hours before that spark comes again. Yeah. It might be 15 minutes, but there's a lull before that second, third wind that is so miserable and you don't know how long you're going to be in it for. And then then that thing comes in and it's like a breakthrough and you're like, man, I would have quit so much longer ago, but now I realize that if I just take that little step forward, it gets that mental breakthrough and allows you to be like, wow, I'm actually physically capable of doing more. And it was my mind that just held me back.
Yeah, my mind told me to stop.
But if we think in the opposite, it was my mind telling me, hey, I can do an Ironman. But the physical aspect, when you started that journey, the physical aspect said, no, Dylan, we're not doing this Ironman. So what I find so fascinating is that we can switch between mental toughness and physical toughness, and we can swap them out when our body starts feeling fatigued in one or the other. So when I'm mentally fatigued, I know that my body, like I rely on my body and its capabilities, and I think like I can physically do this. When I'm physically exhausted, I want to quit. That's when I start kicking in my brain and go, no, don't be a wimp. You got this. You're not going to break. You're not going to die. Mm-hmm. It's just steps. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I look at a duration. I'm like, all right, like for me, I'm not at the level, I don't.
We start doing the math.
I started running ultras or like trying to attempt my ultra. I did my first ultra in April, which is just crossing the line of an ultra, getting, just under 30 miles.
Yeah, that's huge.
Of running. But what I looked at it is instead of looking at it in mileage, I looked at it at time frame. And I go, for 8 hours, I have to do one thing, no matter what. Do it for 8 hours. It's going to be over in 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So if I quit before then, what am I going to be doing for those other hours? I'm going to be sitting and thinking about doing that thing. So you might as well just do the thing. Yeah. And whatever the result is the result. And under 7 hours, I ended up getting hitting over that 27 miles, which I was really happy about a lot. But it was that thing. But for the 10 miles, from pretty much mile 14 until mile 24, I was fast walking. I was miserable. I was in pain. I was, and this is nothing compared to going through 17 hours off of running, swimming, and biking on top of that. I mean, everything's relative, but people don't realize that there's another aspect too. When we think of somebody doing this feat, we think of this person being healthy, being fully fit, that they're not having any issues, they're not dealing with injury. I've had a perfect year of training, because when you accomplish this feat, like you did on an Ironman, and many people who big or small endurance events, whatever it is, challenge that you're facing, it doesn't really matter. But you like, I just lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. I think because what I'm going to piggyback on is so much of what I did has to do with the mental training as well, because you're saying there's physical and mental motivation. So like,
let me steal you back real quick, only because I'm going to finish this up. Thank you very much for kicking that in. So you had injury. A lot of people don't think about when they complete this big event. They're like, yes, I did it. And all that time that you spent worried about your knee, your back, your shoulder, it kind of goes away, and you kind of forget about the suck that you're in and questioning whether you can do it. So with that, in that training and how much you're using physical and mental strength, what are some of the other things that you were doing to help assist? Because you did have a lot of injury. You had a lot of serious setbacks, stuff that put you out for weeks, that you did zero training for weeks while you're trying to train for the Ironman, because you had to prioritize exactly what was going on and had to dig into that mental health or mental wellness to get us there. And we use things like breath work, which you are now breath work coach, I believe.
Yep.
Let me make sure that's correct. You're a breath work coach.
Yes.
You built your own cold plunge.
Mm-hmm.
You use some plant-based medicine.
Yep.
And talk to us about how those approaches helped you accomplish your physical feat and help build your mental toughness, and how you utilize them today.
Perfect. Because they're all essential. Like, the physical training was about 20% of it. And going into it, I thought it was 100% of it. And then I learned, I was like, oh, well, maybe it's only 50. Maybe it's 50% exercise, 50% recovery. And no, it's so much more than that. The best thing I did was I reached out to an old friend who was a breathing coach early in my endurance endeavors and said, hey, I need help. He was Johnny Longinaitis. He was the Avery Point's college breath coach. So he was teaching all the student athletes how to breathe better through their particular sports. But we worked on specifically raising my CO2 tolerance. We worked on nostril breathing. We worked on how to breathe efficiently. He educated me. He taught me. He took me under his wing and really got me breathing efficiently while I was doing the endurance sports. That led into a whole nother world of what we would call breath work. But that in itself, I watched my numbers on the charts astronomically go up faster than ever before by implementing nostril breathing, by working in my aerobic state specifically, and then specifically targeting the anaerobic state. But I found that while running or biking, rather than looking at my numbers, I focused on my breathing. I could go harder, farther, longer, easier. So if I can do 30 miles easier with less effort and shave 5 minutes off that ride, but feel like I shaved it was just holy cow. Recoveries were quicker and longer. But the recovery was huge. I always had lacrosse balls. I always had baseballs, like some sort of rolling ball or foam roller on me. Massage gun, massage strap. I would have ice, and so those all were targeted into reducing the inflammation, reduce the soreness. But the ice wasn't enough, so I built a ice tub, which I will get into in a minute. But with the regular stretching, I want to say the regular stretching and movement and opening was such a regular practice that I'd wake up and start stretching. not necessarily a yoga routine, but 5 minutes of just movement, conscious stretching. And then I would go and say if I'd hop on the bike, I would do specifically 10-minute warm-up for these bike muscles versus swimming or running, right? And so I had warm-ups for those, but afterwards now I'm stretching as a cool down, but throughout the day, the rest of the 6-8 hours, I'm still throwing in stretches here and there, downward dog all day long, like just little things that added up to a lot at the end. A lot of water. I made sure to drink over a gallon of water and started counting calories, because as I started burning upwards of 3,000 plus calories a day, trying to maintain was like such a difficult thing. Eating a lot of nutrient-dense food and superfoods was a huge helper, because you can only do so many supplements. But then we get into the ice baths, the cold showers. This really started shifting my training by allowing me to wake up. Actually, you would wake up not sore the next day after a long ride, but what it would do is it would save the rest of my day. So I would go out for a 50, 60 mile ride Sunday. I'm coming home at 9, 10 in the morning, hopping in the ice bath. It's 50. I would keep it, mine I kept a little bit colder than average, 40 to 50 degrees, specifically for this recovery, with the intention to really reduce the inflammation after a long ride. But I get out, I eat, I shower, I change, I stretch. It's 11 a.m., 12 a.m., and I still have the rest of the day ahead of me. Like, without that cold plunge, I would be dead. I'd be done for the day. Like, pretty lethargic. If we got a birthday party or a cookout or an event, like, here's Dylan just, like, sitting in the corner tired. Because I already, like, got my 6 hours of exercise in. Like, whatever, right? Like, it was just the biggest effort of the week just happened, and now I need to be present. But I noticed, like, I was getting my afternoons back. I was getting my days back. I was getting energy back. It didn't start with the cold plunges, but I'm going to get into how it started, how you can start, if someone who's never done a cold ice bath, how they can start and what that looks like. But what I did for mine is I went out and kept it as simple as I could. I bought a chest freezer, 14 cubic feet, I think it's 13.8 or 14.8 cubic feet. I'm 6 feet tall, and I fit in this. I can't fit in my own bathtub at home. But the reason why I bought this was because I can run it on a timer for only 2 hours a day. And it'll keep the temperature at what I want it at, versus hauling ice. Ice is expensive. It sucks. I looked at buying an ice machine, and just the electricity usage difference wasn't. And so, yeah. So this has been by far the best decision I ever made. I bought it for $300, used on Facebook Marketplace. I caulked it, I painted it, and it still sits there with a cheap 20-minute timer. 2 hours a day. It kicks on, it runs, and then it shuts off. As far as sanitary, keeping it clean, I revert to a pump. I pump the water back out with a 30-foot hose, drain it, wipe it down, peroxide it, and fill it back up. I only have to do that a couple times.
Really depends on usage, right?
It depends on usage. Like,
obviously.
When I'm riding in the summer and you're jumping into it, you're emptying it out four times.
You might get some floating grass and a little mud and little stones in the bottom. Yeah.
But the water is that cold water. Recommended temperature between 50 and 60 is all you really need. I kept it right around, it'd be 48, 50, really specifically for me. And it's shocking. It is jarring. Yeah. It is shocking. And that's exactly what I would be after when I want to shock the mind, right? When I want to strengthen the mind. But after a long ride, you're mentally fatigued. You may not have that willpower to sit in a cold tank. So for me, what that looked like on an exception of 100-degree day is it looks like breath work. It looks like doing a breathwork exercise prior to entering the tub. Very simply, I'll do 2 rounds of Wim Hof. On my second hold, as I'm holding with empty lungs, I'm entering the water.
So 60 breaths you're doing?
Yep.
Do you do a break in between those 30, or do you go?
Yep.
Do you do like that 30, that full exhale, hold for the maximum amount of time,
yep,
and then you kind of just restart that whole back to the 30 breaths? That last one, that full exhale, hold, and on that hold, you're getting into the cold.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
So on that hold,
nice.
On the exhale, you breathe all the way out, empty lungs, you hold. At this point, right? Like Rob from last week said about the
Or Joe, yeah.
Joe, sorry, Joe. I loved it. Can't wait to connect. But you've blown off all your CO2. So that shocker, that isn't in you. So as I'm getting into my tub, I don't have that stressor. I have empty lungs. I'm getting in. I'm very calm. I'm open. I'm not restrictive. And then as soon as I feel the need to take in that full breath, I'm holding again, Wim Hof style, 10 to 15 seconds. But here's where it gets important. As soon as I start to let my breath come back to a natural rhythm, I'm falling into box breathing, 4-second sides. And as long as I can hold 4 in, 4 pause, 4 out, 4 pause. As long as I'm doing that, I'm comfortable in this 50-degree water. I'm not shivering, I'm not shaking, my mind's not racing. I am here, I am in the moment, and I am alive. Very few things in life makes me feel alive like this. And when you are cold, it's very hard to deny that you are not alive. And so, for me, that breath pattern, that breath exercise has allowed my cold water practice to become, in a sense, easier.
I love cold water. I've been addicted to it for years just because it is truly like it's face to face with a fear that is so easily overcome, but never gets easier and is always a challenge every time. And it's like the perfect oxymoron. I don't even know if that's the right word for it, but it's like you absolutely hate the cold plunge, but you love the cold plunge because you hate the initial second of the cold plunge, but you love the 23 hours and 59 seconds following the cold plunge. And yeah, it just, you're so stubborn getting into it. But as soon as you do, you get through, and it's true. You said the best thing is like, it doesn't matter if you had no energy, you need your afternoon back, or you're just feeling lethargic, you're feeling tired. You get in that cold water under 60 degrees, shower even. You don't even have to just take a cold shower, even if you're losing that energy. But just taking that, you get out of there. And what I always like to tell people is air dry. Air dry, which is crucial.
You gotta let your body heat yourself back up.
That's the thermogenesis, the most stressful thing on the body that we can do. And allow your body to heat up. And guess what? You are amped up. You'll run around the house and everyone's thinking that you're on, I don't know, drugs like Adderall or something like that. You're bouncing off the walls, but you're like, I just took a cold shower. I got so much energy. Like, I don't know what to do with it. It's like Rick and Bobby was like having the interview, and he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like that's what it's like when you get out of it. You're like, I want to tell everyone about how awesome I feel at this cold plunge. Like it truly is something it's so incredibly beneficial as well too. The mental toughness aspect of that, because it's just cold water. That's it.
And I want to piggyback what you said about the resistance and how we don't like doing it, and it kind of never gets easier. And so I'll break ice to jump into the ocean when that is my intention. Currently, so I have hard water, and the hard water clogged my coil in my boiler. Boiler company is coming in 2 days, but I have no hot water at home, not by choice. And so what this means that I have to take cold showers, not by choice, and have had to for the last 6 days. And with this hair that I don't have to shampoo or get wet, I have so much resistance. And my wife's in here, and like, she's taking cold showers. She doesn't like them, but she's taking them, no resistance. I'm swearing, I'm angry. And like, I've got the tub in the basement. And if I go down the attention, like, so it's just, it doesn't necessarily get easier. So that's kind of like the joke, is that like, even though I've done hundreds of them, thousands of them, I can't even put a number on how many cold water immersions I've done over the last 6 years, but it doesn't get easier. No. And it's still a challenge. And that's the beauty of it, because I have to face that voice inside my head that's telling me, get out, stop. Because you're uncomfortable. Because I'm uncomfortable. That's my comfort voice trying to say, no, it's not comfortable in there. And like,
stay at your homeostasis. Yeah, perfect level of just balance.
And fighting it. And so it doesn't have to look as jarring as I've explained it either. The way I've started, and a lot of people have started, my mom does cold water showers. This is how she started. But it starts with adding cold water on after a normal shower. Just take your normal shower, hot, however hot you like it. And then before you go to get out, you turn it to cold. And you air dry when you get out. But sometimes that's too shocking. So we can start with just the hands. We can start with just putting the tops and the bottoms of our hand in the cold water. And your body will start to build a tolerance to it, and it becomes easier and easier and easier. But if you've never had any cold water experience, I would start with just the hands or the feet, running it under the cold water at the end of your shower for a few days. And then you graduate to your arms and your legs. And then eventually you graduate to your whole body. And then you slowly start working into getting into the cold water. Extremely beneficial. You will notice the results. It is a great way to not only energize, like we've said, but it is a great way to burn fat. You know, one way that we forget that burns fat that is just so easy to do is cold water.
Yeah, it builds your brown adipose instead of your white adipose, and the brown adipose is pretty much healthier fats. They're thinner, leaner fats in general, so it makes you lose fat by building your brown adipose levels up, which is crazy. Once again, it's less physical, it's more mental challenge, but it can absolutely burn fat on that aspect. And, you know, exactly like you're saying, hands is easy. You know, you could even just kind of like splash that water like you're jumping into a pool.
Yeah.
You know how like people are afraid to dip in, so you get a little splashing.
That's what you're talking about, splashing.
For me, like there's two spots. I go to, you know, a lot of times when you get that cold water and you're trying to like, you're afraid to get the back of the neck. For me, the way I do it is I go straight armpit. I lift, like if I'm doing a shower, I lift my arm and I allow that water to hit me right in the armpit and right in the back of the head and then between the legs. These are the spots that are going to be most shocking to your body. Sure. So if you hit them right from the get-go, now the water pouring on your back actually feels relatively warm because it just hits you in the armpit and the back of the neck or like in the groin where it's just freezing cold and you have almost your temperature regulators there too.
Absolutely.
So it's yeah, it never gets easier though, huh?
No, it doesn't. And I enjoy it. I snuck away from work the other day. They sent me into Westerly to run some errands for Napa and 5 minutes from the beach. And I was like, do I have a towel? No, does it matter? No. And like I pulled down the beach. You got Westerly Fire Department rolling out their hoses like they just did some sort of practice. They're cleaning up. People are walking their dogs, but everyone's bundled up. Pants, winter jacket, hat. It's windy. It's cold. And here comes Dylan with like, I had shorts on and a hoodie. And like, you know, I walk up the beach and I'm cold at this moment. Rightfully so. I came out of a heated car. It's windy. And I haven't kicked it on yet, but I just, as I'm walking to the water, I'm starting my breathing. I'm getting myself mentally, physically prepared to strip down, and I'm just wearing gym shorts. And I realize as I'm walking in, like, this old lady kind of picking up her kid, like walking them away from the weirdo hopping in the ocean. And here I go, I waved so high and jumped in, and it's what I do at this point is I just start floating. It's Musqueam. There's decent waves. There's like a 2-foot swell, and I'm just floating, loving it. And it was the highlight of my day. It was an extremely challenging day. Mental and physical challenges. And I managed to sneak away, jump in the water. I want to say probably my guesstimate would be 60-something degrees. Not cold, not as cold as I would have loved it, but cold enough.
Yeah.
Did everything I wanted it to. And it was so amazing. Came out, but then now I'm driving back. I got the windows down, no shirt on. Like I am as warm as it can be, but I don't need the heat.
Yeah,
I don't need a winter hat. Like it kept me fired up for the rest of the day.
I think even doing like cold immersion, especially when you're doing like full cold plunges and stuff like that, there's a huge benefit if you're doing it with a group of people. Just the energy off of everyone there. Like a lot of times I go to like Pogdipog. Well, I have gone a couple times there, but what's the one in Marlborough? Why am I?
Lake T.
Yeah, Lake T, Terramungus.
Where they do the plunge.
That's where I usually go because it's relatively close to my house. But if I'm going there myself, like some days, I'm just like I gotta hit a cold plunge. I'll just park there, strip down, jump in the water, get out, drive home, and that's it. And I'll only jump in there once. But when I go there with a couple people, or sometimes I'll show up and there'll be other people that are there, and it's always like this, yes, I found one of you.
Hello.
Yes, there's someone else that's crazy like me in the middle of January jumping into Lake T. So it's always funny when you find those people because then you're like, oh, let's go again. Hey, let's go and try and swim a little bit. And you get the energy of people that like mine that'll help push you and take away the aspect that it's cold water. Yes, it still feels cold and stuff like that, but having the group and everyone's doing it, it takes that fear level that you have of being really high, like, oh my gosh, this is freezing. And you're like, all right, well, everyone's doing it. It's kind of like, backing up.
Helps.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
helps so
like,
much.
Everyone's doing it. You might as well. Yeah.
And you feed off each other's energy with that.
Yeah. So how have all your holistic approaches and practices, combining all those things, helped you out physically and mentally, and not only in just the fitness realm, but how do you apply these practices throughout your life, your daily practices, and like I said, outside of fitness as well?
Okay. And I think that's huge, as one of my injuries I haven't really mentioned has been, so I got a bad back. We've got so many major issues or minor issues with the back that it's a major issue. And the moving forward with the endurance sports is questionable. Can I do this without pain? And what is going to be the best approach? And so what I've learned, especially from doing Ironman and the endurance end of it, I've learned the importance of movement. It doesn't have to look like endurance. It can look like a 5-minute walk a day. But whatever you're capable of doing, the importance of overall movement, health, wellness, and fitness, and how the mental strength and the physical strength work in harmony together. So if I'm physically weak, my mental strength is suffering. And if I'm mentally weak, my physical strength is suffering. And I've learned how they both need to work in harmony. So really trying to feed both sides of that moving forward holistically has looked like a lot of different things. I fight with I fight with depression, I fight with anxiety. I've always been on antidepressants, and this year has been a challenge for many ways, but I'm happy to say I'm off my meds. So it took a lot of work, it took a lot of time, but I was able to wean off and be free and clear.
Feels good.
It feels great.
Still challenge.
Very challenging. I'm a lot more aware of my feelings and emotions. It's a great learning thing, but I've learned so much of what I put into my body dictates the way I feel, depressional wise. So what I'm eating and putting into my body supplementally now looks so much different than I did years ago. I'm on an extremely clean diet. I got Lyme disease this year, something else that rattled my life. So I did the Lyme disease, no meat, no gluten, no sugar, no dairy, no wheat, really nothing. And I haven't really strayed past that since I felt better. I really haven't.
Vegan? Vegan, pescatarian? Well, I don't want to say you don't have to label your stuff, but like you don't eat any meat?
I haven't eaten
chicken?
I haven't eaten meat. And fish, yes. Eggs, yes. Cheese, very little, because I'm trying to stay away from the dairy, but no, I really haven't eaten
chicken.
Meat. No, I felt so sick I thought I was gonna die, and before I got test results back, I said if this is cancer, they're gonna make me stop eating meat. But I was so sure that I was gonna die this year because I was so sick that was my own personal decision. I'm gonna stop eating meat, and I don't know if I'll ever go back. Currently, I'm able to maintain. I feel great. But
have you tried pushing your
part of it?
I know you've been kind of down on training, because I'll be interested in hearing that when you get back to it, or whatever that looks like. You start doing that.
Can
you
I
can't
maintain on
trying to get the volume of protein that your bodies need. It's hard to replace animal protein because a lot of those more natural or protein sources have they need a lot of fats, or they need a lot of something else that's going to boost your calories a lot higher than what you need. So I'd be interested to keep a track on that, Dylan, and I'd love to hear your feedback on that. I mean, a lot of people are very successful with just plant-based and stuff like that, but going from a person who was a meat eater, training with meat, training with whey proteins and all that other stuff, I'd be interested to see how that journey goes if it comes. Obviously, you're going to be excited too. Well, maybe not. Who knows?
It's interesting. I'm at the lightest weight I've ever been. I ended up losing 30 pounds in about 2 months when I initially got sick. I had a migraine for about 3 months. Everything just kind of came crashing down. And so I'm happy to say, I'm on the other end of it, and I'm picking up momentum again, and we're doing good, and we're starting to get back into the light training stuff. But I agree, it'd be interesting to see what my body and how it would work in comparison to the past. I will say that this year has been there's been a lot of movement and education and understanding with plant medicine. I am not an expert, but I know that it has helped me tremendously. It's kept me.
And when we're talking plant medicine, we're talking mushroom base.
Yep.
We're talking, that's what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
So mushroom base, we're talking, microdosing. We're talking about using psilocybin initially microdosing, not on levels that are going to create a psychedelic reaction, but enough to get those levels into us that are going to have a health benefit mentally and physically on top of that. So I just want to put that out there for those people who are unaware of what microdosing is. Microdosing is taking a very small amount of something like psilocybin. You can do it not only with like psilocybin mushrooms. There's many other things that you could microdose with, DMT and so forth. But microdosing is just putting it, and a lot of times it'll be mixed with a lion's mane or a niacin, put it in a capsule, and then taking that a little of the day with no reaction. But the benefits, there's a lot more research going out there, and there's a lot more that,
it is incredible.
It's really, really fascinating, and you can continue on with that. So
my personal reason was to help fight my depression, and I had started a few years ago. And like I said, I'm in recovery, so this is, as a recovering alcoholic, this has different views from other people. But for me, it has worked and it has saved my life. And so with that, I'm just going to leave it at that. And what I do is I have a mix. And so it's a mix of a psychedelic and 7 non-psychedelic mushrooms. I take a capsule every morning. I do what they call cycles. So I'll do like a 5 days on, 2 days off. And it's like taking a vitamin pill. I can't feel anything. There's nothing, like, you can't tell that like I took a psychedelic mushroom capsule, because it is, it's 0.06, I think, of a gram. Like, it's such a minuscule amount. But the beauty is when you mix psychedelic and non-psychedelic, the holistic mushrooms together with the medicinal purposes, you mix them together and you take them on a small, consistent basis, it's like fertilizer for your brain.
Yeah.
So not only am I able to eliminate old thought patterns, break up the old neuronal highways, I'm able to create new thoughts. I'm also able to create and grow new neurons and protons in the brain based off of that. So what does that look like? A real simple example is this idea that I had about myself that I wasn't good enough. Now, this is something personally that I still deal with. I'm not good enough. I'm not capable enough, like that limiting belief ceiling that haunts us all. But for me, it's really held me back in certain aspects.
Imposter syndrome.
And so that's a belief that I had in my mind that we have worked to break it up with this. Like, we can dismantle that thought and reassemble it to look a different way. This idea that tomatoes, I've always had a knee-jerk reaction to tomatoes. I'd gag, I'd throw up, disgusting, I hate them. You couldn't put tomatoes on my sandwich, I wouldn't eat the sandwich even if you pulled it off. Like, that's how bad it was. This year I'm growing tomatoes and eating them out of my garden. I don't necessarily love tomatoes. This needs to be said that it hasn't been night and day. Like, I still am kind of grossed out by some tomatoes, but there's other tomatoes where I'm like, oh wow, this is good. Can I have a second one? Where before I wouldn't have even tried. So this was something that I wouldn't have tried. I never would have attempted to try, but now I'm trying. It's simple. It's the form of a tomato. But what about those things in life that I've thought this way about doing? Not eating meat, or a healthy lifestyle, or thinking or acting in other ways. Like, things that somehow were programmed in my mind. I'm realizing the hardest thing is unprogramming, unlearning what we've been taught, or what we've learned before we had the ability to choose what it is we're being taught. And so kind of going through and breaking up those thought patterns. But then on the other end is the physical recovery is sped up as well. So your muscles are healing faster through the microdosing as well. And that's why I'm taking more non-psychedelic, because I have 7 non-psychedelic mushrooms mixed into my recipe. That's why I added more than just the lion's mane and the chaga. I have the reishi.
Reciprocal, what is it? Reciprocal protocol begins with
And-
the C for the cardiovascular.
Yep.
I don't know all the names of them yet.
And I butcher. I can read them and say them, but I'm not saying them right. And I've noticed a huge difference in my overall just well-being.
I think there's something to say a lot. You know, they get a bad rap. You know, just like many things get bad raps because they're known as drugs and especially in the past known as drugs and hard drugs. It's like you know, psychedelics. But for me, like I when I was 16, I ended up going over a friend's house. We're having like a campfire, and he brought out a bag of mushrooms. I didn't have a clue what mushrooms are. No clue. Like, I didn't know what they did. I didn't like that. And he's like, here, just eat this bag. And I'm like, all right. So I tried to eat these mushrooms, and I was like vomiting. I'm like, these are the most disgusting mushrooms I've ever eaten in my life. And I'm literally gagging. And he's like, put them in this sub. And we're trying to shove them in a sandwich. It doesn't take away this flavor. So he said that, you know, they could cause me to like, obviously he told me there was a psychedelic after we started eating them and whatnot. Well, he told me right before. I'm not that much of an idiot just to eat anything someone gives me. But I ended up tripping. Like, we ended up taking an entire eighth, and it was an absolutely mind-blowing, eye-opening experience of my life. And I probably took it one more time in high school, and then I went off to the military. When I got out of the military, I did that whole thing of trying to deal with all my history of war and all that other stuff and going on in every pill and med and antidepressants and stuff like that. And I go, wait a minute. Let me try and dip into psilocybin again. And I went straight back, full dose, full eighth I took, had a 4-hour trip, and it allowed me to process all that stuff. So a lot of this like shadow alchemy, the way that we're programmed to unprogram, all that stuff, like it got me into rethinking the way that I was thinking and allowed me to slow down, focus in on what the big issue was inside. And I do have to say that psilocybin at a heavy dose was a big step in helping me overcome a lot of the stuff that I thought, like you were talking about, that imposter syndrome, or deal with a lot of the depression that was going on. And I ended up stumbling across more friends who ended up microdosing it, and then they ended up capsulating it with lion's mane, niacin, like I talked about, and psilocybin, and it was a 5 days on, 2 days off, like cycle. You open it up, it tells you the directions right there. Yep. But like you said, it's literally taking a vitamin. You would have never have a clue. There's no, like, you don't go, it's not like eating a gummy, like a THC gummy or anything like. It's literally like taking reaction. A CBD. Mm-hmm. It's like taking a CBD tincture, a gummy, or something like that. There's zero reaction. You're probably even questioning if it's doing anything for you. But if you stay consistent with it 30 days, 2 months, and stick with that cycle, 5 days on, 2 days off, or whatever is programmed, then when it's given to you, if you come off it, then you might start feeling like a little choppy in the brain, questioning things. Like, it's very unnoticeable unless you like come off, and then you can kind of see like, oh, you know what? I'm not thinking clearly. I'm not sleeping as well. I feel unmotivated. You might find a lot of that stuff happening when you come off it. So sticking with it and microdosing, I think, is a phenomenal thing. I'm not advertising people should go out and this is going to heal you, because I don't believe that, you know, you get something, this new thing is going to heal you. Let's try mushrooms, are going to heal you. Oh, THC is going to heal you. It's going to fix all your problems. It's going to stop this. It's almost that we're always chasing the next pill, quote unquote, to speak. But if you stop, then you just look at the benefits of what it does for you, the overall idea of how much, or I don't want to say the overall idea, the overall facts of how mushrooms play an important role in the myelin sheath of the brain, help with neuron function. Mm-hmm. It's facts. It's science. It's proven. And if we can implement that, we'll absolutely improve our mental health, our capability of handling things, our overall wellness. So I think it's important for people to take a look at and understand. And there's tons of doctors out there too that are there to help you out. There's sessions that they are actually led, that I forget what they're called, the people that sit with you.
It's like a shaman.
Yeah,
it's like a guided experience.
Yeah, the guided experience. But they also have people that are like everyday people to make sure that have experienced it, that will be there with you. So if you are going through it and you're laying down on a couch, they're there to just, like, if you wake up and flip out and oh my gosh, they're there to make sure that you have an enjoyable experience. And in general, always starting off, if you are looking at the higher dosage to hit the psychedelic level, that I would say obviously have somebody who's been there, who understands what's going on, make sure you're in a safe environment, make sure that you're not going to be out in public, there's no distractions. And I highly, highly suggest that you have to be in nature and you have to be mentally ready to do it. It's not something that you just go, oh, I'm going to take a heavy bit of mushrooms and just see what it is. It's called a trip for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You plan for your trips.
Mm-hmm.
When I take a heavy dose of mushrooms, it's a planned time, a time block. Everything's mental, and if it doesn't feel right and I'm not in that headspace or I have other things that are distracting me, I don't do that trip. I make sure that it's in a good headspace, that I'm ready to take that journey on that heavy dose. But in the meantime, that daily, every day or every other day, 5 days on, 2 days off, just getting that stuff in there, the benefit is incredible. And I mean, between Joe and between you on talking about the benefits of mushrooms of all types, I just want people to have more of that awareness.
Yeah, and I think as more states legalize it and they're able to run open testing, there's going to be a lot more information out. There's also, as I'm speaking, there's just so much information already out there from the 60s. So before it was really squashed, there was tons of research. And one of the things I kind of try to remember for myself, like I said, as a recovering alcoholic, Bill W., the founder of AA, accredits his psychedelic experience to getting sober and starting AA. Now, if I were to go into an AA meeting today and mention psychedelics, I'd be called a fraud because I'm not clean and sober by AA standards. How few people in that room understand that that room exists because Bill W. had a psychedelic experience. He had an experience that allowed him to change his thinking so he could create a program that has helped millions of people give up alcohol and or drugs. The other part is when it looks more like a ceremony, when it looks more like a healing ceremony than a recreational drug or party.
Yes.
The whole experience changes.
That's crucial.
And so I've been to a handful of retreats and ceremonies that have really shifted the way I've viewed it from, I remember high school and college, like you said, that experience that was just so out of control and not safe and comfortable, and the environments that I'm seeing created for other people to have these essential experiences safely is unbelievable. And it's, psychedelics is just as dangerous as THC, which we know is just as dangerous as CBD, which we know really isn't dangerous at all. And so we're realizing you can't OD, you can't kill yourself. These are natural drugs, plant medicine, grown here organically, that do have these huge powers of helping.
I always say, if you're going to do a drug that Mother Earth grew. Because if you take that drug in, and I don't even mean hard drugs or anything like that, anything, if Mother Earth grew it and we take it in and it's not set for us, most likely our body will know how to react to something that Mother Earth gave us. It's either going to kill us, it's going to have us throw up, it's going to make us sick, but we're going to recover. If we start taking stuff that's man-made, synthesized, chemically made, and then we put it into our system, our body is not from that science base. It's from Mother Earth. Mm-hmm. So our body might have a harder time, faster time, heroin and cocaine. And then when you start mixing stuff in there, then you're really playing with your life or death on that aspect. Mm-hmm. In my mind. And if you're going to do something that's grown by the earth, that is natural occurring and stuff like that. And it is, like you said, it is very safe. And the idea of you're not trying to do drugs. When you take mushrooms, you're not doing it to try and take drugs. And that's what you're talking. When you're in school, you're let's go smoke weed in the back or something like that. But you're not doing it for that. You're doing it for the holistic healing approach. And you make a very good point, saying that you want to be in an environment that's made and set up for you to be successful in healing, not an environment that you're playing beer pong and flip cup and then you're going to do a bunch of mushrooms. Mm-hmm. I mean, if that's what you want to do, I look at that entirely different than the way that we're looking at mushrooms. And I can be considered a hypocrite because a mushroom is a mushroom in that aspect. But to me, that's the way that I look at it. If I do them, yes, you can call me that I do drugs. You can, whatever, if that's what you want to say, that's fine. But I look at it as that healing experience. It's something that happens once a year, at that level. It's medicine and it only happens when it's needed. But then you have the same same time, you have people that will criticize the psilocybin, but they're prescribed Xanax and they take a Xanax every night before they go to bed, and they have a beer. They have a Xanax and a beer, and it's like, if you actually look at it, taking the psilocybin is and microdosing is actually benefiting your life. Mm-hmm. There is no positive to alcohol. There's zero. There's not one thing that is positive about alcohol when you put it in your zero. Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing. And if someone could tell me, I would love to hear it, and please tell me that it's good for your heart because you have one glass. But those people are the ones drinking the bottle, and that's okay. That's them. But like
ultimately, we know it's a poison. It reduces your vibration, and alcohol just shouldn't be here.
Good money maker, though.
Great money maker.
Good money maker.
Especially when it was a monopoly, and our society is very pro alcohol. It's shifting, but you know, I go to weddings where I'm one of the few people not drinking. You know, it's lucky that every wedding I go to, my group of sober people is growing. I love it. And so, but no, it's, you know, I think that, you know, the parties that are fueled by alcohol look a lot different than ceremonies that are fueled by intention. And I think moving forward, we're all kind of looking for, like you said, that not that one answer, but that collage of things that makes us feel, think, act, and live better. If we could figure out those things, so for me, it's I know what those few things are. For me, it's breath work. It's staying sober. Like, my recovery is important. It's staying active, and it's also like trying to stay on my path of continuing growth. Like, I want to learn more. I want to grow more, so I can help myself be a better person. And the more I can take in and learn to help myself, the more I can share with others. And while I'm doing that whole circle, I feel like I'm at my best state and like my happiest and most fulfilled. And so those are like my goals moving forward. Like, how can I do all these things that have helped me, that I love doing, in a professional mannerism, so not only I can help other people, but I could also get paid and sustain a lifestyle doing so. I got no problem giving away information for free. If you ever want my opinion, I'll give it. I won't charge you for that. But it's been so great, and like getting all these certificates and over the years has looked like all the things I've done. It's breathwork, personal trainer, a spin instructor, and just I'm looking. The next one's the Wim Hof. I want to get the Wim Hof cert. So not only is it the Wim Hof method with breathwork, but it dives even deeper into the understanding of the cold water method. But I always throw myself in as a guinea pig first. Like, my poor body is understanding what it's like to be a guinea pig, but we've made some progress. And it's been really awesome to be like on this journey and continue to like dig and learn. But I think so much of it is sharing what helped me during my worst times. And also trying to shine a light for other people in recovery that, you know, all of our recoveries look different. And for so long, I was trying to make mine look like that picture perfect recovery, right? Like,
fits in the box. Look at my recovery. It was here. I'm here. Look at me. And this is the way it goes. Like, almost like a perfect story.
And I feel like I'm almost doing a disjustice. And like to come here and be able to air like, yeah, no, I am sober. But part of me being sober has to do with the help of plant medicine to keep me from falling back into a state of depression, to keep me physically growing and active and like on that path. And so I think it's shifting. It's looking different. I think the acceptance is there.
I really like that too. Is you're right. The acceptance is there. What I really like is the fact that I'm finding more people that we can talk about this casually. And I think more people are accepting to hearing about alternative forms of medicine, especially within the past few years of everything that's going on in the world and the availability of science that's doing more research in alternative medicine. There's more companies out there that are trying to push the boundaries and limits of labels and is this really bad? Yeah. What is actually considered bad, and why do we consider this bad? Is there health benefits to this? You know, the modern medicine that we think is healing us is actually causing more problems. And some of the stuff that we said was, this is going to kill you and you shouldn't do this, is actually benefiting your health. So
Yeah.
and more right, like
we have to unlearn everything they told us.
Exactly. Like, don't do drugs. Marijuana is horrible. Mushrooms are gonna kill you. And then on the other side,
drink a Coke with your cheeseburger.
Yes,
Let's go have a cheese pizza. And we're gonna sit in front of the TV all night.
And then they're like, hey, maybe if you just actually don't drink soda all day long. It's fascinating, but it's nice to open up these conversations and have these, especially in a podcast. These aren't things that necessarily I want to go run around and say, hey, this is what I do. But I think there's always a right time and a place to open up about those things and discuss them and allow listeners to reach out and be like, hey, I'm kind of curious about how do you come across these how do I learn about microdosing? How do I learn about breathwork? How do I learn about cold plunging? Obviously, we all know the internet. We all know YouTube. We can search on it. We get that. But, locally in general, I like touching base with people like you and Joe and people who are trying to make their life revolve or made their life revolving around more holistic approaches, getting more information out, and trying to have people see that there are alternatives if we're willing to listen, if we're willing to take the time to do the research. And I would say that is probably one of the most important things, is a lot of us don't know because we don't have the time to do the research, nor is the research in your face. The news doesn't really care about this. They don't care about the slow, long approach to health and wellness. They look at the fast thing, which I get sells, but they're always looking at the fast thing. So if we're trying to find that information in general news sources, it's probably tucked in there somewhere, but it's overpowered by other things. So if you do take the time to do the research and find those different articles on PubMed and you can see a lot of the benefits of the things that we are talking about.
I always say I'm an open book. I'm on social media, my emails, so you can feel free to
let's wrap that all together too,
and message me.
How do we get in touch with you?
So I would say, oh goodness, what a great loaded question. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, under Dylan Howley or Dylan Lefty. The Lefty Cycles Project is probably the best way. We're pretty active on the Lefty Cycles Project. And email howleydylan8@gmail.
We'll tag them in there. I'll put all that stuff in there. So.
Whichever way makes most sense for you. I'm old fashioned. I guess I say old fashioned, but I like talking with people. I like figuring out, because we're all so different. So what's going to work for you versus someone else is going to be just different, right? All of our circumstances are live. So what everybody's looking for and needs is a little bit different. So that's why I love understanding people's circumstances and what information I have to kind of help them fit in their lives.
I have to say Dylan has a plethora of information, and this is just only the tip of who he is and his experience. We have a podcast maybe a little over a year ago. You can scroll back and take a look about his journey before he actually completed his Ironman. That's up there. But please reach out to him. He's got so much knowledge on training, endurance, health, cycling, and he doesn't just do it like anyone else. He's got to work double the time, especially on swimming. We had this conversation we were talking about. I was like, I can't imagine trying to swim. I mean, I have a hard enough time swimming in general, let alone with two arms that are fully functional. I can't imagine doing that. So, but reach out to him. If you got bikes to donate, he'll hook you up with that. If you need a bike, he'll hook you up with that. If whatever it is, feel free to reach out to him. Dylan, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and talking a little bit about cold plunge, medicine, breath work, and embracing the sucking long endurance.
Everything, yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This has been great, and have a great day. No more bad days. Just do what you can.
No more bad days, tribe.
Yeah.
Cheers.